Hey friends, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you can be notified every time I post a new video. Okay, so I have a very fun video planned for today. I will be drawing the Little Mermaid in my own style on one of these watercolor cards. I am interested to see how these cards hold up against the watercolor. Of course, I expect some buckling or rippling, but I have used the Strathmore paper before and have really liked the quality. So I'm just going to jump right into creating a basic loose sketch to follow. I'm going to grab my mechanical pencil, my wonderful kneadable eraser, and this soft brush, which I use to brush away any eraser pieces that fall on the paper throughout the sketching process. This prevents the pencil from smudging and keeps your space a little neater. Okay, so you'll see me here begin to lightly sketch out my Ariel-inspired mermaid. Since this is a watercolor card, I don't want to over sketch it out, if that makes sense, because at the end I want a clean and finished illustration. Sometimes if my creative juices aren't flowing easily, my sketch can become dark or smudged with too much pencil on it. And so with that, I usually just take a fresh paper and try again, and usually starting afresh will fix any problems that I had. For this piece though, I had a pretty structured plan of where I was going, so the sketch process went fairly quickly. The Little Mermaid is a very cheerful and cute Disney princess, and I really wanted to give her a pose and expression that showed that. She also has an adorable fish sidekick that you'll see me add in at the end of the sketch. I just couldn't forget her little friend. Okay, so once I feel that my sketch is complete, I then grab my kneadable eraser and lighten the whole drawing in preparation for the line art. Then I hop right into outlining with my favorite micron fine liner in a size 05. Now this is usually my standard go-to favorite nib size. I think it's not too thin and not too thick. It's just right for clean, bold lines. As I speed through this here, I'm just going to talk about how sometimes it's hard to transfer that loose feeling from your sketch over to your line art. It can feel stiff or forced occasionally. I just recommend keeping a flowing hand and loose wrist in order to keep that lovely feeling that the sketch had. As I continue on with my outlining, I switch over to my micron in a size 02, which is a little bit smaller in order to get the best detail around her face. I find that this helps me have more control over the detail that I'm creating. I then take my watercolor palette and this round brush in a size 5 to begin adding wonderful color. This is where Ariel really starts coming to life. I always keep a little scrap of watercolor paper next to me that I use as like a color tester. I definitely recommend always having one of these nearby. I find it so handy to use as a color match or to swatch out my mixed colors before adding them into my painting. You'll see me take some time here as I add a couple of layers to her skin and blend them out before moving on. Throughout my illustration, I'm constantly adding or tweaking skin tones as watercolor does change and get a little bit lighter as it dries. I'm now moving on to her bright and colorful red hair. Now right at the beginning, I thought that I would use just this permanent red watercolor that I had, but I realized that even though it does look very bright, there is a bit of a brown tone also. So I mixed in just a tad of burnt umber with the red, and that, in my opinion, made a perfect shade for her hair. Now that the first layer is down and has dried, I take my Winsor & Newton brush in a size 1 to add strands of hair over that flat red color. I find that when I give some extra attention to the hair, it really creates a more interesting and realistic texture. If you have seen any of my other videos, you would know that I love my detail brush and use it quite a bit to add more visual interest into any illustration I'm working on. After this, I mix up a light purpley lavender color for Ariel's simple shell top. Then I move on to her tail and create a bluish teal color. When I'm mixing my colors, I try to focus on if the color I'm recreating has a cooler or a warmer undertone. And from the reference picture I was referring to, her tail is a bit more blue than green, giving it a cooler feel. I then add some rubbing alcohol flicked on the wet paint to almost create some large looking glitter or sparkles. Then I add a striped light blue to the bottom fan part of her tail. After this, I color in her little fish friend with a sunny yellow and accent with some blue. Then you'll see me tweaking with her skin tone just a bit more before I grab a larger brush and switch to a light blue wash behind her. Okay, so now I grab my white gel and white Sharpie paint pens in preparation for some special details I add later. Right now, I am taking this super cool brush pen that has a fine shimmery paint inside the barrel, and I use this to add some sparkle to her tail and her top. This is called the Wink of Stella brush, and I have this brush as well as all of the supplies I used today linked down in the description box below, so make sure to go check it out. It is so smooth and amazing. So now I add some highlights of strands in her hair with this white gel pen and some little pearls with my white Sharpie paint pen. This just adds some really fun detail and makes it look extra special. I then try and add some sparkles to her tail, but the sparkle hasn't quite dried yet, and so I move on to creating these little blue flowers floating in the water around her. Okay, so now it's dry and I can get back to using my white paint pen to create some more fun detail around our mermaid. Some stripes on her tail, bubbles, or dots around her, just basically adding whatever I feel that it needs. When I add those white sparkles to her tail, I also return to my small brush to add some darker blue to contrast those dots. This made it look even more interesting and eye-catching because of that contrast. Once that I feel that our Little Mermaid is complete, I add my initial with my detail brush in the water. I am so excited with how this Disney-inspired Ariel mermaid turned out. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like down below if you enjoyed this, and I hope to see you next time.